Right, welcome to our observational research study. Today we are analyzing some of our results that we got from our observational research study on Savvy Life interactive systems. So we're going to go through some of our findings and analyze what we found and what can be implemented to improve and better the consumer experience for the company of Savvy Life.
Our consumer segment for this observational study were those that were age 60. They generally made an income of $1 million plus. They generally had families. The location was in Castle Rock, Colorado, and they were generally males.
So let's give a little bit of context as to what Savvy Life is and what they provide for their customers. So Savvy Life is an AV company. That means audio visual. So they handle anything in the home that has to do with the audio or, like, for example, sound systems and visual, like a home theater, things like that. So the consumer that we did this observational study on, his name was Frank. And the products that Isaac, the owner of Savvy Life, had installed in his home were anything AV related, audiovisual related. So some of the main things were speakers. He had speakers layered throughout the whole house through like 6 different control rooms. The sound system was connected to those speakers in a way that Frank can actually just go on his phone and choose where he wants music played, where he wants that sound to hit, and how loud he wants it to be. So his phone is his remote to his whole sound system in his whole house and to the outdoor landscape where he is out there. So another thing that Savvy Life has provided for Frank is lighting control. And the specific system that has been installed in Frank's home is the Savant smart home system. And basically what that does is it just makes it so Frank's entire home can be controlled by the touch of his phone. And if anything bad happens, Isaac, the owner of Savvy Life, who installed these things, can easily troubleshoot it from the convenience of his own phone as well.
Okay, so the first question we went in wanting to answer, is the consumer behaving in the way that the owner isn't expecting? So is there something that the owner doesn't know? So Frank, who again is the customer that we went in seeing, is using the system often, but still has some insights as far as how it can be improved in the way that Isaac, who's the owner, may not expect. So one of those insights is that the technology needs to be better integrated with everything. So an example of this in Frank's home is that it doesn't connect to his lighting throughout his home, and it's too large of an investment to buy a whole new lighting system. And another thing is Frank feels the technology is far too complex for the consumer to understand, which Isaac, the owner, might not know, because although the owner explains it and is there to answer any questions, neither Frank nor his wife know fully how to utilize the system, which they've spent all this money on. So Isaac's clients will be able to fully tap into the value of their system if he can teach them how to use the products in a simple way. So the key question to answer is what's going on, what is being installed, and what all can these do?
So does the marketing elements appear to have any effect towards the consumer's idea about this company? And so Isaac's marketed his company in a way that it has a foundation of trust. That when he says he's going to do something, he's actually going to follow through with that. And that is something that the customer has noticed. And that was the number one thing that he actually did notice, was that Isaac was a man of his word. Also, that the products that they use are very efficient. These products are designed to have a long life value. And if, as Landon was mentioned, if there are any issues because of this technology, it can all be fixed remotely. And so there's no need to have a worker inside the home to fix this. It can actually just be done remotely, which is a huge plus for the end consumer because they don't have to have workers coming into their home. This technology is dependable and as I mentioned, has that long life value. And the reviews amongst the community are that Isaac does the work that he says he's going to do, and he has that brand image that is viewed very reputable in that area.
So Frank was a consumer that was part of our observational study, and this was a couple things that he listed about Isaac and Savvy Life. So he stated that Isaac listens and communicates well. He always does what he says he will do and communicates throughout the whole process. Isaac lives with his bid and lets you know what needs to be done and how it is going to be accomplished step by step. With that being said, they are working in harmony together.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about some things that might be getting in the way of getting repeat purchases. So as we've talked about, the whole AV industry has quite a bit of barriers to entry. It's pretty expensive for you to get this whole smart home package installed into your house. So one of the things that makes it an issue is that you kind of being into technology and having your home be a smart home, you want it to be up to date, and things can quickly come out. Technology quickly gets better, and all of a sudden your tech is out of date. And also, due to the technology constantly improving, it's really hard for Isaac to get in, or for Frank that noticed, for Isaac to get in and make sure that he's always got the best of the best equipment there. And as I mentioned, there are definitely barriers to entry. Technology lasts a long time, so that makes it really hard to go in and say, hey, Frank, do you need a new home theater? No, I got a home theater installed last year. You don't necessarily need that. And the price of getting a whole new system, a whole new lighting system, a whole new audio system is very high and not really necessary once you have it the first time. And the other issue is that it's really hard to find a unique way to serve your customers. And Frank even noticed this. He's like, there's a lot of AV companies out there. There are tons that I could choose from. And the reason he goes to Isaac is not because of necessarily the product that he provides, but the way that he has his business. So these are kind of and going along with that with trust and loyalty, like we talked about earlier. So these are kind of the steps that need to be overcome by Savvy Life to get more repeat purchases and really increase those sales and the margins that with their consumers.
Okay, lastly, real quick, we wanted to touch on COVID-19 and how that has had an effect on this customer base. So according to Frank, his COVID-19 has just increased the usage of his products. His grandkids and other guests can come over often, and they can watch games in his basement, in the movie room. And so it gives him the opportunity to be the host. And where social distancing is required, it's possible because the services are throughout his whole home. So guests can be outside and enjoy the music and other features. So COVID-19 has just improved the usage of these products.
So that first section was focusing primarily on the insight that we viewed on how the consumer integrated themselves with the product. This next section is going to focus more so on how we thought the study went, maybe what didn't go so great, what went well, and what we could improve on moving forward.
So with any study, there's advantages and disadvantages. With observational research, you could see how the consumers work with the product and the services. For ours, it was a little hard to get this information alone, but nevertheless, we were able to get it.
So what did we execute well with this research? There's a lot of things that were difficult to do. And I'm sure we'll talk about that in a little bit. For example, it's hard when there's a pandemic to go into a very well-off man's house who's in his 60s and say, hey, show me everything you've got. Show me what Isaac has installed. Show me your home theater. Very difficult to do that. I didn't know him personally. So me going in there, it was very hard to get him to show me around. He didn't know me. There's a pandemic, illness, things like that. A little bit hard. I think we did a good job of doing our best, though. I went there and I got as much information out of Frank as I could. We were able to learn a lot, and I think, gain really valuable insights as to what Isaac is doing really well. For example, Frank talked for almost an hour about how he trusts Isaac with anything. He said, I could leave my expensive watch next to Isaac for an hour and it would be there when he got back. So we learned that. That'll be great to tell Isaac. And lots of other things that can help improve Savvy Life. It was difficult to execute, but I think we got some great information from the process.
So exactly what Landon kind of talked about. What did our group not execute well in this research? So it was just like Landon talked about, it was hard with COVID going into people's homes. So we weren't necessarily able to do a typical observational study. We had to ask the consumer some questions in order to get the information we needed rather than just simply observing him. Again, because Landon was a stranger walking into this guy's home. He had to speak to him instead of just observing him, just because he didn't know him, and that would have been a super awkward situation if he just watched him the entire time. So that we didn't execute as well as a typical observational study should be, but again, we worked with what we had and still worked off of those observations that we gained.
So what would we do differently moving forward if we were to do it again? If we were to do this study again, we would look to meet with more than one customer in order to have a larger set of data to pull from. So as was mentioned in the beginning, our consumer segment this time was a very rare set, right? An older man who makes over $1 million a year, who instead of having an immediate family has grandkids coming to his house. So not your typical individual that would be a part of this study. And so we would look to have a larger set incorporated in that. And then we would do a better job, as Paige mentioned, conveying more of an observational study rather than just asking questions and getting answers that way. Obviously, that observational study, a lot can be said with their body language and how they're actually using the product. And so that would be something that we would look to implement a second time around. With everything said, though, we were able to gain some important information for Isaac, and we will convey to him the results that we found.